everything that's going through you, thoughts, emotion, behavior, even events around you, they all are coded messages. They all carry the essence of who you are. They all carry certain desires, certain obstacles, and everything. If you're going through grief right now, it's coming as an inner message to tell you you're so connected to loss. You're connected to the loss of something so beautiful. So of course, if you're going through fires, of course you're going through that. But people go through that in daily life, in other circumstances, and they're not aware. They're like, oh, why am I feeling so sad? Or why I'm feeling the loss of something when nothing has been lost.
Welcome back to the Dana Grant Show, where we are really focused on heart-centered conversations. And energetically, if you know me, you know I'm going to call in exactly what you need. And today, with no exception, I have found a New York psychologist, Dr. Yasmine, and I want to say Saad, but we had a conversation before, which it's sad, but it is also Saad, which is kind of the yin and the yang and means a little bit of both. And I'll let her explain that more because I loved that conversation that we had prior to showing up. But I want to just say welcome from Paris. She's based in New York. She's here at 10 p.m. from Paris. You're going to want to hear this conversation. You're going to want to know this woman. You're going to want to follow her because she is the real deal. Welcome, Yasmine.
Thank you so much, Dana, for having me. That's wonderful. I'm so excited to
Yeah.
be here. I love you and I love your energy. So
Oh, well, the energy connection connected us. Our conversation prior, you anchored me back in. We started off by just talking a little bit about current affairs of what's going on and me feeling a little discombobulated, like my energy was just all over the place due to the LA fires. And I think we're just going to like dive in right there,
Mhm.
which I think you have so much wisdom and can help anchor and ground people in not just the devastation, but this is worldwide that it's been impacted. Um, let's start there on what you can expand and perhaps even give insight and tools on what people
Sure,
may be experiencing and ex- what they need to know.
sure. Well, the first stage, they're going to experience many different kinds of emotion: shock, disbelief, grief, tremendous loss, anger, and they're going to go back to the shock and it's going to go in circles. It's going to go in circles. And they're not going to know what to do and they're not going to know what to focus on because everything is gone. So, from the material to the spiritual to the memories to everything, your safety. So, people are going to be very overwhelmed and not knowing which direction to go. Those are the people who are living it. But the
Right.
people just next door are going to feel this, even if they haven't been through it. So even if you don't live in California right now, you are feeling the grief, you're feeling the loss, and we're all feeling this together. And so it's really important in this time that everybody takes their place, which is the one who are living through it. We have to allow them to process their emotion. We have to allow them to talk and
Mm,
to go through it. And the one who are not going through it, it's important that you do your job, which is connect to what you have, go
mm,
back to being grateful, fulfill your mission. Your mission is to support, not live through. So I want everybody who's listening to hear that because we have a tendency to really feel, but when you feel, you become one, and then you're going through it with them. And how can you help? How
yeah.
can you help? And we feel bad to not feel, and we feel bad to disconnect. And the idea is not to disconnect, but the idea is to know that you right now have to be a shining light. And the
Mm.
wind is blowing, the wind blow the fire, destroy the home. It cannot blow your light. And it's very important that you keep your light bright.
Wow. There is so much wisdom in that because we just talked about how immersed I felt. And I almost went down that rabbit hole of anchored in to wanting not to commiserate, but to feel at that level but we must continue to show up and give them that guiding light, give them that hope, give them that information that they may need in the midst of this incredible storm, this devastation. Thank
That's
you for
right.
that.
Yes. And what you give who you are. So that's why it's important that you can what is your talent? Who are you? There's some people who are
Mm,
fantastic organizer who are gonna know where's the help, how everything else. There's others who are very good at soothing, like therapist. There are
mm.
others who be very good at just observing, noticing, giving wisdom. But everybody has to take their place. And so the idea is not to figure out, if you're more a healer, the idea is not to figure out where is the shelter, where's this, where's that. That might not be who you are. Somebody else has it easier as a path.
Mhm.
So tap into who you are, what you do best, and look at your daily life, look at your job. Maybe you're a perfect organizer, you know systems. So maybe you'll create a system to help people.
Yeah.
But figure out who you are, and that's what you give to others.
I love that, to give yourself permission to be who you are and what your gift is. You know, we just talked briefly about being in Northern California and surviving some very big fires. I flew back in from Italy, a retreat, and I thought the sunset was beautiful. And it was the largest fire in California. The campfire was going on. I didn't know it. And I'm posting, look at the beautiful sunset. And the next day, pure devastation. We lost communities. We were in a state of absolute disbelief. But that being, I was available to take, and I didn't know I would do it, 6 months off. And people said, how are you doing this? I used my gifts of, now I didn't navigate. I didn't tell people where to go. That's not me. But what I did do was I made meals and I bought Italian pots that they could have and start over with, and baskets of food they needed, and gift cards and blankets. And I would go to the side of the road of 80-year-old people they were still in their car in shock, and comfort them and put them blankets and water and hydration. So I thought, oh, this isn't so important. You're not doing big work. But what I look back on it now, and what you just said was what I felt called to do, and it was enough. And yeah,
That's right. And it was your gift, and it was
yeah,
what you would do perfectly.
yeah.
So it was so beautiful that you honor that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just I was navigating around in the smoke and finding my way to families. I felt very inclined not to give to big organizations, but to raise money, match it myself, and pick families and help on a level of connection where they felt seen, honored, and what do you need? Let me provide that. And I thought maybe I should be doing it differently. But I know Aaron Rodgers donated $1 million to that, one of many that donated money. And I often wonder, where did that money go? Who got that? I don't hear anyone saying I got a check from Aaron Rodgers, or this was provided by me. I'm not saying it wasn't delegated. I'm not saying that out there, people. I'm just saying I felt inclined to really make it personal, to reach out and say, who needs my help? What family do you know is on the radar that can, and it just expanded from there, which was what I did.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
I
what you're
said,
saying about this, what makes it totally you, you're saying that you were looking for a better system. You were
yeah.
looking for a better system. And that, I think, if you look in your life, I'm sure this is something that is a personal trait of yours, that you're looking for a better system or better way to give or better way to impact, because
Yeah.
there's that within. You were looking for a better way.
I love that. I think that if I believe we vibrate at a certain level, and I'm always looking for a higher way, meeting my higher self. What does she need of me? And I think that when I looked at your process, and I keep writing out over and over again as an intuitive, I kind of doodle, and I'm like, oh, what did I just write? Subconscious. It was your inner message approach. And I thought, inner message approach. What does that mean for the people that are listening? Because I've read it, I know, but how can you explain the inner message approach that I think that you've come quite famous for?
Yes. So I created the inner message approach to help people tune in to everything that's going through you, thoughts, emotion, behavior, even events around you. They all are coded messages. They're all carry the essence of who you are. They all carry certain
Mm.
desires, certain obstacles, and everything. So I'll give you an emotion. If you're going through grief right now, then that it's coming as an inner message to tell you you're so connected to loss. You're connected to the loss of something so beautiful. So of course, if you're going through fires, of course you're going through that. But people go through that in daily life, in other
Yeah.
circumstances. And they're not aware. They're like, oh, why I'm feeling so sad, or why I'm feeling the loss of something when nothing has been lost. It's because your mind in that particular moment connected to missing and
Mm.
connected to a more beautiful place, a place that you desire that is not there. So the loss is calling your attention to say, hey, deep within you, there's this better place. There's this more beautiful place. And therefore, I'm going to introduce a sadness because you're not there. You don't have it. And
Mm.
only if you were able to decode that, you will know the moment you feel sad, is that you crave something more beautiful. Something deep within you wants that.
Mm.
So then your job is to ask yourself, well, what is it? How would you envision it? What it will be like? And you are craving that. And then ask yourself, for what reason? Maybe for safety, maybe for a better world. Sometimes people, they're sad because of the loss of a parent, because they
Mm.
wanted something else in that relationship. They wanted more love
Mm.
than they got, or the love that they got is gone and now they need to transcend it and transform it. But it's a desire to keep that love, create that love, have more of that love. And so it
Mm.
tells you who you are. You're someone who that is so important to. And so you can
Mm.
see how just one emotion of grief connects you to what you're missing paradise and who you are and what you want to create in the world. So that's why I say everything has an inner message if you can decode it. A thought, an emotion, a behavior carries so much about you. And so if we could not sip in the emotion, but if we could take a step back and say, well, what is happening within me? And with very few questions, you can really understand. And it gives you a compass. You have your North Star. And
Wow.
so that's the idea.
Well, that was a you just said it gives you that was powerful. It gives you your inner compass, your North Star. I think that everyone is looking for their inner compass, their North Star. And I'm going to dive in deeper here. So there's a process here of getting to know how you feel and that there's a message in every emotional aspect that you're feeling. Like we talked about a little bit prior to taping, I was anchored into the grief and the loss. And I was saying my hands felt cold. And you said you're really immersed and we got to pull you back out of it because you can't stay there with it. But there is a sign here of letting you know your light is needed somewhere else because you feel such empathy and grief. So let's use that because right now we know that, and I think this is going to be going on for months after the Los Angeles fires. People are going to the fallout, universal fallout. If they're feeling sadness, loss, grief, maybe hopelessness, maybe we'll go even broader. Political, we have a political division, or that the country feels very divided. And I don't normally go into politics, but right now it's very divided. We're switching parties. How can people feel more connected to what they're feeling to let them individually be guided versus this universal, sometimes hopelessness? How can they find that inner compass and North Star, which I believe guides us to our hope, to our vision of what we're called here to do?
100%. So the first idea is what gets in needs to resonate. So although we can be in a climate of hopelessness, not everybody's going to feel hopeless. So
No.
why you and why not others? That you want to ask yourself. And it's
Mm.
because there's something that resonates. So you want to be decode
Mm.
hopelessness. So,
Mm.
hopelessness, most people feel hopeless when they have tried and it hasn't worked and they see no other way. So they feel that they have tried and there's a bigger force, they stronger than who they are, that is
Mm.
taking over, that they have no control and no influence.
Mm.
Hopelessness is about not having influence.
Mm.
So, hopelessness, what happens is if you are hopeless, you tapped into your lack of influence. So you also tap into your desire for influence and the fact
Mm.
that you could not fulfill your big desire. So, hopelessness is always related to a big desire for impact, influence, change, control that you couldn't have. So, you already know if you're hopeless that you want something big and you
Mm.
don't have the means for it. You feel that you're going against some obstacle and it's not happening, and you decide to stop fighting. So
Mm.
something within you, because hopelessness it's a letting in. It's like it's like you're done, you're not
Is
fighting.
it different from surrender? Like I s-
Definitely very different than surrender. The difference, surrender is I accept the situation and I'm gonna let it be. So
right.
there's not a defeat in it. It's not a war that you stop. It's surrender is a peace in it. In
Mm.
hopelessness, there's not a peace. There was a fight and you still want to fight. If you had a way to fight, you would fight.
Right.
But you like internally decided this is going nowhere.
Right.
And you decided that instead of fighting for your hope and your dreams, you are actually decided to go into hopelessness as a way of resting internally, as a way, because hopelessness, you stop the fight. It brings you back to yourself, and it's
Mm.
a way of disconnecting from that desire. Somewhere you decided that desire is hopeless. Like that wish, that dream, that what I want is, there's a desire to let it go. And
Mm.
so whenever you have hopelessness, it's something within you that's deciding, I want to let go of this path. I want to let go of this desire. And maybe
Mm.
it's to have less suffering. Maybe it's not to fight anymore. But this is where, if you know this about hopelessness, now imagine all the information you have about yourself. You
Mm.
know you have a big desire. You know that
Mm.
your natural ways is fighting and figuring it out, and
Mm.
you're feeling defeated. And you have decided that it's better to just let this rest in some ways, but not in a peaceful way, but let this rest so that you find another strategy. So sometime in the hopelessness, you can find a new way, but only if you don't go and ruminate, in
Mm.
if you don't hold a, oh, this is so hopeless, this will never happen, because then you're feeding yourself so many negative thoughts and you're
Right.
really cycling down.
Mm.
And if that's the case, you're constantly reminding yourself of some kind of aggression you got, some kind of,
Mm.
somebody put this force on me, like the government is this or this, and
Right.
and instead of fighting, instead of using that to fight, you're going in and you're spiraling in the hopelessness.
The
And
hopeless,
so
and it seems like it's attached to lack of control, which I think we'd be remiss if we did not add that we really don't have any control with anything external anyway. So launching out of that, how can they? I always see hopelessness as it's okay to feel that in a moment, but use it as information to bounce out of into what you can do. So on that springboard, what would you say? Where they've hit, they feel hopeless in the moment. How can they springboard out into, they don't need to springboard out into action, but maybe you tell me.
So there's several things you want to understand a little bit. So it's a lack of control, but it's also a feeling that there's what I call aggression coming, which is some harm coming. So the
Mm.
moment you still attach or still think there's a harm coming,
Hmm.
it's going to be very hard, because you're internally, everybody wants to fight harm. everybody. So to springboard into something else, you need to connect to strength, to wisdom. You need to connect to something else.
Mm,
Um, and
I
there's
like
something
that.
within you, yeah. And there's something within you when you're hopeless that's telling you, stop the fight. And really what it wants you to change the perspective, change. Maybe this is not a harmful. Maybe this is, okay, what do you do? Like when something you think is harmful come your way,
Mhm.
you fight, and then you go down. Why do you go down? Is it because your body is tired? It's things inside are telling you, is it worth it? Should we continue this way? And ideally, what you want to springboard, you want to have a new light, a new passion. And so you want to figure out, who are you? Because there's certain people that are fighters. And so if they turn into hopelessness, they need to find another fight. They need to bring the light back up. You need another fight. You need another cause. Because to bring you back to life, because that's who
Mhm.
you are. And there's other people who just are at a place where fighting is no longer what I want.
Mm.
And if they ask, if you ask them the question, they will tell you, I don't want to fight. Or the other will be, this fight is useless. And based on the word they're saying, you know that their next direction. And they will know for themselves the next direction. If you tell me this fight is useless, I said, okay, so you haven't give up on fighting. It's just this one.
I
So
like that you identified just this one. Yeah,
that's it.
you're a fighter, but this one you might have to give up on and pivot there. So what about the people that feel they're in the struggle? Maybe the struggles are different than the fight. They're in the struggle, they're in the I often think it's a story, a matrix of they've heard their whole life that this is the way you do it, and they can't break that bind of that story of who they are because they can't see themselves clearly in order to create the life that I can clearly see for them, but they can't connect to that version of themselves. What would you say to them?
What I would say is you're tuning into the fact that your mind has to figure it all out. But
Mm,
if you take my inner message approach, I'm showing you how really you have an inner guide that's constantly communicating to you and guiding you. And you just have to trust. If there's a force within you that's constantly bringing you certain kind of emotions so that you move a certain way, so that you
mhm,
feel a certain thing, like there's an inner guide constantly. So you just need to have faith that you're in the transition. And when you're in the transition, that means you still one foot in something and maybe a toe in the other. So, and then
mm,
that toe will become two, three, and then you lift one toe here. And that's what we're going to do. And sometimes it takes time. So I feel what people are missing is faith and trust
mm,
into the inner mechanism that is inside of you, that is there. There's no need to fix, there's no need to sort. There need to see that, okay, this is where I am right now. Full acceptance. Like the surrendering you talked about, this is, but you don't surrender because you have nothing to do or you cannot do it. It's you surrender because it's already beautiful. What's
mm,
happening within you is already beautiful. It's already in motion. It's
mm.
already done.
Wow. And that probably is where you said I highlighted some notes. It says you see it, the essence of you. That's so powerful. Would that be it's already in you? It already is what, it already belongs. So would that be what you mean by that?
Yes. Yes.
That you're
The
not seeking, you don't need to find, it's there. So how can if they've got layers of filters over them because the egos probably needed to come in and protect them for many years and they're peeling back, how do they find that beautiful place that I can see what you're describing, but they're like, I don't see it, I can't find it. Tell them the process again. I love reps. Let's tell them again. How do they find that?
So, I did a TEDx in Italy this summer. That's supposed to come out very soon. And I
I'm so
described
excited. I was going to say
steps.
congratulations on that. So excited. I can't
Thank
believe it
you.
was in Italy too. It was like, it's a sign. I love Italy.
I know. So the first step, that I said is, and I take a very concrete example to show people, is the example I use. I want to use everyday life so that you can relate. Like you come home, you have a long day of work,
Yeah.
and your frustration because the dishes are dirty and the house is disgusting. And so the first question to ask is, well, you're frustrated with the dishes. The thought is, I'm so frustrated with the dishes. What is the thought calling your attention to? You will tell me the dishes. But like right now with the fires, people will say the devastation of the fires. I said, okay, but that's the obvious. I'm not interested in the obvious. Like
Mm.
why for you particularly the dishes? Why for you particularly the destruction? And then you will tell me, oh, I cannot think clearly if my house is not organized. So here we have it, that basically you're trying to fix your clutter mind by decluttering your house. And so if you don't decode that thought and realize what your frustration
Mm.
is about with just one question, you will be keep fixing the house. The carpet will be dirty, you'll fix the carpet. And that's what we do with our life.
Mhm.
Then your kids' clothes are dirty, you go wash them, and we go and we fix. We never understand that it was the mind that we need to seek decluttering. So you needed a totally different thing. And so that when you go home, the dirty dishes do not bother you again
Mhm.
so much. At the same time, you will still be cleaning the dishes because if you like an organized home, you'll always like an organ. It's not going to take away from that,
Mhm.
but you're not going to be so afflicted by the dirty dishes.
Right.
And if we linked it to the fire, this is why everybody right now the new need to do this. Everybody's going to feel this destruction differently. For some people, it's going to be the memories of my father. It's all the pictures, the
Mhm.
guitars. That's what is for me. And so that means in some way that what is calling your attention is your connection to your father.
Mhm.
This is what we have to boost and elevate right now. The fire are the occasion for that. Of course, after you went through all the emotion of grief and sadness, and you want to honor any emotion you have, but you also want to understand that what particularly is affecting you in that fire is the
Mhm.
relationship to your father that you maintain through object, and the fire is asking you to elevate that. For other people, the fire is going to be about more safety,
Mhm.
home, a safe place. And so the fire asking to elevate what a safe place is. Can a safe place be, somewhere where your energy is? Can we elevate that? That's going to require tremendous work, but at least you know your North Star. You know what particularly is impacting you. Why the grief? Why is it? And it will be different for anyone. And so it would be feeling the emotion, while asking you that particular question, and then maybe finding a
Mhm.
therapist or someone who
Right.
this is your North Star.
Right.
What's really upsetting me about the fire is losing my father's memory, is losing safety, is losing my daughter's safety, her, the school, the friends, the community, maybe. And so
Right.
this is so how you're being asked to recreate a new community differently in a way that cannot be
Mm.
erased by fire.
Wow. That's powerful. And if we go a step further, and if the people that are listening right now say, how do I decode, but how do I practice decluttering my mind? I know I have to, I mean, you see this on Wash, Rinse, Repeat. People will do anything.
Yeah.
I've got to have everything perfect. This perfect. Well, we're just going to use um, perfection paralysis. I've got to have the house clean, my office clean. Everything must be perfect before I can do anything. And they never do it because that process, that there's number one, they're never going to get there and achieve that. And tomorrow it starts all over again, and they're in this chaos of perfection. But how can they decode on what they're really needing out of that perfection? And how can they declutter their mind or understand what it is they're really needing? I have a lot of people that are, I can feel them leaning in right now. Like I'm stuck there. I got to do this in order to do that. And so how can we give them tips on decoding their?
So decluttering the mind and perfectionism are two a bit different, so
Mhm.
I'll do both. Let's start with perfectionism. You brought
Excellent.
that.
Yeah.
So perfectionism, what is it? Is that you want it perfect. Okay, but what is perfect? Is that maybe a super neat home, it means you enter and you feel like inside it rests. It's like it feels like it's perfect. I mean, it
Mm,
feels good, it's balanced, it's organized the way I want, it has the right balance. Perfectionism is when things are perfect, and perfect is the mind's translation of harmony or balance. That's how the mind
mm,
knows, because the mind,
mm,
like, notice like the painting is crude. You want to put it in balance.
mm,
The carpet is not, or the pillows are not fluff. It's all about creating balance and harmony. Same thing if you perfect a paper. It's about, it has to flow.
mm,
So perfection is the mind translation of your inner need for flow and balance, for harmony.
mm,
So whenever I encounter somebody who is a perfectionist, I said, you are seeking harmony and balance. You're actually very sensitive to imperfection because everything within you is calling
mm,
for that.
mm.
Now, why is it so much calling for that? Because we all want harmony and perfection.
Right.
It's because you're so sensitive that inside you have accumulated a lot of emotion. So you're trying on the outside to make perfect and fix what actually needs to happen inside. So that means we need to move through emotion. We need to declutter. So that's why you made the link. We need to declutter internally. We need
Mm,
to, there's a lot of messy emotion. There's a lot. So we organize on the outside. But that's why I say that's my typical example in the TEDx, which is you're going to go perfect everything on the outside and will never be because really it's the inside.
mm,
And I always give this example. If you go to a yoga class and you come home to the same disorganized home, before the yoga class, you were pissed. After the yoga class, you're like, eh. I mean, you're still pissed, but not as much.
mhm.
You can. And so why? Nothing changed in the outside world.
Yeah.
Same thing with interaction with friends, same thing. So you can see that when inside is more organized, clean, you let go of stuff, outside doesn't bother you. So perfectionism is a high sensitivity to imperfections
Mm,
because inside there's too much accumulation. So you are someone who are trying to be good in the world, not to be have
mm,
negative emotion, to try to be at the higher level. But that's not
mhm,
how we work. We all feel things.
mhm,
We're feeling right now the fire. We're feeling what people are
mhm.
feeling. And
Yeah.
so we have to process it, we have to express it, we have to remove it, rebalance it, and then we can go back. So that
Mm,
is the idea. So that is perfectionism. So it's you have to declutter internally, yes, but it's more the emotional space.
mm.
The clutter mind, go ahead. You want
No, no, I just thought it's such a beautiful reconstruction of how people will shame themselves or they're attached to the, I'm paralyzed by perfection. How you flipped it, you took the shame out of it, you made it something graceful and beautiful, and you're sensitive to clutter, you're sensitive to the lack of perfection, and this is how you can reattach to. Well, I loved that. That's a beautiful description. I wish I would have heard that a decade ago.
yeah,
It could have
that's what
saved me. It could have saved me from a lot of fluffing pillows.
that's right. That's why I believe the world needs this because everybody's so harsh towards themselves when
Oh yeah.
the negative thought, the negative behavior are coming, they all make sense and they're not pathology. They're your attempt to fix something. It's just an attempt that's not going to lead anywhere, but you don't know that. That's why it's so important to decode. So if you don't decode, you will act
Mm,
on things, you will do things. So you'll have shame, you'll go fix, and everybody's in those cycles. That's why it's so important that you see that what's coming through you is a
right.
message of something, and it's coded through your mind's language,
So
or
how
it's
can they reprogram to say, I keep doing this, but there's another, I've got to decode this. What would be a simple thing they can ask themselves each time on it may be something different, like doing the dishes or fluffing pillows, or I need to go do this before I do that. And it's a program that they've done that they may be driving themselves crazy. They may not even know they're just agitated all the time. But what question can they maybe I guess we'd have to plant the seed into the subconscious to say this would be what you need to decode. Instead of that, perhaps ask this. What would that be?
So, I mean, my first question is, what is the thought calling your attention? What is the behavior? You're going to tell me the imperfections. Okay, but why is the imperfection driving you so crazy? You're
Mm,
going to tell me, because I don't feel good. So, okay, it's about feeling good. So let's go fix what's behind. Very simply. It's very simple. Now, what is going to happen is you're going to engage in the behavior again and again because you don't know how to fix.
right.
You won't
Yeah.
know. That part you won't know. And
Hmm.
you would need to either listen more to me or somebody else or talk so that then you
Hmm.
would need help. But the first step is at least you know what help you need, what is the North Star and what. And some people can intuitively know. Like they fix the painting and say, I'm just trying to perfect the house because I need more clarity inside.
Hmm.
Let me see if meditation works for me, or let me see if a yoga session, or let me see if
Hmm.
qigong. I recommend
Mm,
qigong. I've been doing qigong forever, but you have
really?
to find your way. But now you know where to find.
Mm,
And if you really understand this inner message approach, you understand that there's a guide within communicating, so you just have to listen and you already know the answer. So it's not so subconscious, unconscious. Like what's very different about what I do is the world think it's not visible. You have to go look. It's just right there. It's just a logic. Like if I tell you you're in grief because you're connected to missing, you can figure that out. It's very logical. It's
it's so
not,
simple when you say it. I'm like, well, that's so simple.
it's so
That's
simple.
I love simple. I mean, I love simple, but this is so simple. It reminds me of the Betty Crocker cake when it came out in the 30s or 40s. I can't remember. And it was just add water and it bombed because it was too simple. And women, and then they put it back in the test kitchen and they said, add 3 eggs and half a cup of oil and a half a cup of water. And they felt like they were doing more. It was more complicated. And now they're really baking a cake. And I'm like, but it was better tasting and moister actually with the dehydrated eggs in the keep it simple method. But people like to complicate.
So
Uh,
you just
yeah.
said it. I love what you said. It's not that people like to complicate. It's that a lot of people find their value and the self-worth through performance. So
Mm,
if it's not something to overcome, something you put effort, you don't feel good enough. We
mm.
are trained to
I was
like
wondering when that was going to come up. You don't feel good enough. Is it a worthiness issue?
it's the fact that you measure your worthiness by achievements. So
Mm,
if you get something simple, it's like then you go, was I that dumb? Or like,
yeah,
well, where do I get my achievement now? It's
yeah.
almost like if it's not hard to build a muscle, then well, where do I put? And I think it's more that we all have aggression. We need to put it somewhere. And
Mm,
a lot of us put it in our minds in figuring things
mm,
out, and we do that. And I think we'll be so more at peace internally if we release that and used a creative process instead. But most of
mm,
the world is fighting to get, fighting to be, fighting to. And
mm.
so and unfortunately, but that's what creates war because we create war within. So then we create war without. There's no other way.
I love that. I hope that we can like play that on repeat. We might just like rewind and replay, rewind it because it is true. War starts within, and then we project and call in more vibrational war. Um, where do we go from there? They get the inner wisdom, the North Star, the message. What else do they need? What else do you think is what we're missing right now that we can implement and that is desperately needed in the world right now?
So in you need the inner message approach. And the inner message approach first is you ask yourself the question, you find your North Star. But
Mm,
after that, North Star, you need to find your way. either through seeking help, or there needs to be a little bit more processes. So the first step is very easy afterwards. And so people can reach out, read my Instagram things. There's a lot of wisdom. The
Right.
other thing that that I really want the world to know is negative thoughts are in some ways emotions, feeling that got transformed. For example, I'll share that because I would like every parent to know that to educate their children. Children nowadays, and that's what they need to know. They go to school and they receive a cold shoulder from a friend, for someone, and they don't know what to do. They're pure, they're innocent, they're nice. So they take it in and they start thinking, why are they ignoring me? Am I not good enough? That's how it starts. It starts with somebody else behavior that create a negative emotion that did not get expressed, released, that the person didn't stand up for themselves. It creates a negative thoughts.
Mhm.
So, for example, when my daughter had started having negative thoughts, I told her, of course you did. You received this person's emotion. And so you're trying. So we have to figure out, okay, now you know the mechanism. It's not about the thought, but the thought will go into areas of your own cracks or what you haven't defined. So if she hasn't defined her self-esteem, it will go in, am I good enough?
Mm.
If she has not realized her sense of power in the world, it will go, well, I have no control over this. So the theme of the thought will be related to what needs healing.
Mm.
And so that's what I want the world to know. And that's how I want you to treat your negative thoughts, adults, children, everyone. So it's showing you what needs healing.
Mm. So funny because I put down and I highlighted negative patterns and their impact, and you went right into that. Just the synergy of what I was going to ask next. You just led with it, how impactful this is of being aware and the interpretation of thoughts and what we can teach the next generation. Having three daughters that are now in their late 30s and one in their late 20s, I wish I could go back and do it differently, but I can't. So for the people that cannot go back and do it differently, and maybe at that time we didn't have the grounding and understanding, maybe we came out of chaos or we're adult children of alcoholics. I mean, we all have stories that we come out of and we pass it on generationally. And I've been fortunate enough to do this work and heal and understand, but yet I do see the impact that I've made. And what would you advise? That I can't fix it. I'm not defensive. I hold space for it, but I'm not going to say it's easy.
I think you said it. You're seeing the impact, but
Yes.
it's just not correct. You're seeing the negative impact.
Ah,
You are
yes.
not seeing the positive impact, which means we all believe that we want to give something good, something that our children feel equipped with.
Mm,
But our children have their own path and their own challenge, and you will leave things for them to work through because they need that for their path. And
mm,
so you have to see the gift in hardship. Of course, we don't want it. And at the same time,
mm,
they might need that for their lifetime, for their path. And in some way, who are you to rob them of that? So you
yeah.
had a fantastic positive impact by leaving some things
Mm,
unhealed. If
mm,
if you heal everything, well, what are they left with? Like, what's the purpose of their life? Just go and have fun? How boring. If they have all the abundance in the world and there's no challenge and there's no growth, who they become? How do they express their purpose?
They might argue that point right now, but I am going to write an article on the gift of hardship.
But you
I
want to
love the gift of hardship. I love that. It's a gift of I'm preparing you for something bigger in the world. And I do believe that karmically we all come into this life with our own challenges on top of whom we choose as our parents as well.
yes.
I don't believe there's any mistakes.
Yes. And the idea is You yourself did not prepare them through hardship. It's that your own evolution, your own led you to somewhere. And so there were things left for them as your children. They have to heal the generation, and it's part of blessing too that comes in that way. So
Mm,
it's not that you prepare them, is you left some healing for also them to accomplish so that they can go through a healing process, so that they know what it's like. The reality, nobody wants to go through this. Who wants that? But
right,
that's not how we work. And so I think we
right.
have to start stopping the demonization of hardship and bad. And this is where it's only bad because we desired something else and pure and better. And
Mm,
it's so we have to connect to our desire and create that. And
mm.
so it's again in some way the inner message approach. So when
That inner message approach, everything we discussed went back to that inner. I mean, it was like I'm watching it go like in a circle right back to the inner, and the inner go right back to connect. I mean, it's such a beautiful process that can be utilized everywhere. I think this is what drew me, number one, energetically into you, but understanding this process and listening to you talk about it through real life situations. It's so it can be applied everywhere. And it really takes the shame and gives an enormous amount of reconnection and grace to stories we've created that we get stuck in. Or we want to reapply the shame in that and fix it energy. It's like, well, wait a minute. There's a gift in hardship. We don't want it, but there's a gift in it. And I know that without my hardship in my life, I wouldn't be doing the work I do in the world. It
that's
just it
exactly
just wouldn't be possible. With
that.
the healing and the understanding that I have. Did I want it? No, but I look at it now as a gift, and I'm grateful because I was able to stay the course. And I'm also grateful for every version of this, being 60, every version of me prior to this, what she did to show up for me, what she did and held space, whether she thought she could survive it or not, she did.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And I would add, because you talked about shame, and so many people have shame.
Yes.
So you want to decode shame too. You don't want to just, the idea, you don't want to just feel emotion.
Mm,
The I always say the first step is to almost like, oh, I'm feeling shame. What is that about? What, and then you need some knowledge. That's why you need someone like you to tell you, like, but when I
mm,
say it, it will become obvious. But what is shame? Shame is you are making your whole self bad, as
mm,
if who you are, your identity is faulty. It's like shame on you. It's almost like you degrade yourself so that
mm,
you realign with some values you have. That is the shame
mm.
process. So that means that you're willing and you have a desire, such a strong motivation to destroy who you are because this value is so important.
Mm.
You might if have internalized that from a parent, but you have adopted it too. So you want to see what is the shame. So maybe the shame is maybe shame I didn't heal myself enough. That means you
Mm.
have such a desire to be in a healed state that you're
Mm.
willing to really destroy yourself so that you give yourself a big kick in the butt so that you get back to that place.
Mm.
Now, what I would say is, okay, now we know you have such a high desire for healing. You are using this process. Why use this process of destroying yourself? Somewhere you don't believe that you can abide by those values if you don't beat up on yourself.
That is
This is
so
what,
powerful. I mean, that is so powerful. I mean, the work I do in the world, I think the shame factor that I deal with the most in people's stories, I don't ever think people are stuck. I think their stories are stuck, but that way you just decoded it and reassociated what that means and how and what you truly desire. And that no one in the world can project shame upon you if you aren't willing to take ownership of it and it hasn't triggered what your own belief system is. And would you say that people may adopt that theory of shame because it number one keeps them from moving into another story, but it keeps them playing very small. And
So it keeps them feeling very small is what I call a side effect, like a medication. It's not what you wanted. I mean, for some people it has that they actually wanted that and they use shame through that. But that's a
Mhm.
small percent of people. The majority of people who have shame, playing small ends up being the side consequence because when like it's like you give yourself a kick in the butt once, okay, twice. By the 100th time, your butt hurts so much that you cannot sit anymore. So
Yeah.
shame is that. Shame is okay. The
Yeah.
first time you shame yourself, fine. But by the 100th times, you feel like this
Mm.
because you have destroyed yourself. You
Mhm.
have. So you do play small.
Mhm.
And it's also you're fulfilling this belief. You didn't believe that you could get there in a different way. And there's this inherited
Mm.
belief. And I'm from the belief that you really have to respect where you are because maybe
Mm.
you are to play small for your children to see that and for them not to play small. We
Mm.
spiritually like sacrifice ourselves for the good of others. It's almost like somebody who's an alcoholic all their lives. You know what it brings forth is who not to be for some children. So, and if you want to go in the realm of spiritual, sometimes that's what it is. You remain small for others to rise, you know, but then you will not be seeking help. You will not be, and that's why people get upset. Like, I'm going to give you a simple example. I
Mhm.
have a mother who's anxious. I'm a psychologist, I can fix anxiety very easily.
Mhm.
And and in my life, she always embodied some illness. But what it did, I always evolved because I learned to fix every single illness. So body illness, mental illness. And after a while, and she would always be upset with me, like, don't fix my things. And I realized, yeah,
Mm.
she has to stay in that place for me to go in the other place.
Mm.
And it's very important to respect. And now, I mean, I thank her for taking that so that I can take this. I kind of have it easier than the place she took. But if she wasn't who she was and what she went through, I will never be here giving you what I'm giving you, ever. So we owe everything to my mother, everything that I'm sharing, whoever I'm going to impact. And the hardship she went through. And something inside her insists. And most of us, when we want to help our parents or help something, we're like, oh, they're so stubborn. I don't understand this. I can help them. They don't want the help. But it's about understanding what it is about them. And some people are very clear internally. You hear it. There's a no, no, because their mission is so strong. And you want to listen the same way that inner message, you want to listen. It's
Mhm.
not, and not from your value and your judgment, because I could say, oh, come on. You have a daughter who's a psychologist and you don't want to take care of that anxiety. I can fix it in 2 seconds. Like,
Yeah.
but then it's not about that. I'm not meant to heal her. I'm meant to
Right.
evolve myself so that I can help others.
That is such an incredibly powerful message. And whether you knew it or not, I am the adult child of an alcoholic, and I have never drank. People, I'm often put in very uncomfortable situations because they're like, "Why don't you drink?" Um, I never have a good answer. It's like I just never did. Well, I got alcohol poisoning in my 20s. I'm not a good drinker. I'm a this. It's just never been part of my life. And it's
That's right.
been a happy life without it. And I mean, if I have a sip of wine occasionally, it's like a sip, and and then I feel like, oh, I think I feel alcohol in me. There might be some anxiety with it. But watching my father drink
That's right.
and be a very functional alcoholic, but watching that, I think my message, when you said that, I put myself there and I thought I got the clear message that I was not here to drink. And it actually you just took the struggle out of anything that I would show up. And it's interesting how excluded I can be when I don't drink. It's pretty interesting, but it's something that's just never been incorporated into my life. Even though I love the idea of being in like one of those speakeasies when I go to the South and have a little, and I'm like, oh, a little lemon drop, and I take one sip and I'm like, oh, I feel woozy. I love the idea of it, but I never actually. partake in it. People are always like, "You never drink your drink," and I'm like, "Yeah, isn't that interesting? I know I never do, or I just never order it."
Yeah,
Or I get there early and I order something that's I love the new version of the books that are coming out and all the places that are offering the alcohol free, what are they called now? They're the mocktails. And but I was making mocktails before mocktails were cool. It's like it looked like a drink, so people wouldn't ask and I wouldn't have to tell. I just never had an adequate answer. Now I can understand in a very, very clear way. When you said that, I had a very clear understanding that that was a gift. And I love my father dearly, and I don't just identify with that. And I lost him, in my 30s. So, but with that, I see so much love, and now I look at it as a gift that he gave me versus
that's right. And at
yeah,
the same time, I think what I would love people is to have both, because most of the world veer towards I got bad. And then
yeah.
when they discover, then they go, I got gift.
Mhm.
In reality,
It holds space for both.
and exactly. Because in
Yeah,
reality, it's something bad that served you, but it still remains something that somebody went through that they suffer, is something that you would not
right,
want. There's still something that, created shame, maybe created, like, it's still something that was not, you cannot call positive.
right,
Um, but it serves. So if we could get out of negative positive, because everything has
right.
both. And so if the whole world could see, where do you tilt your pendulum? If you're tilting towards the negative,
Hmm.
you are not seeing what it created for
Right,
you, the benefits. And I know it's really hard, but that's because it's not aligned with what you value. It's not
right.
aligned, that's why people cannot see it.
So you don't go into this. I'm so grateful with this toxic positivity because you know what you survived, but you find space. And it's so interesting because I've just found this in the last relatively 2 years. I can hold space for both the enormous grief and betrayal in my life and the gift of what it gave me to find the safety within. So I can
That,
find that, but I can also acknowledge
that
that. And sometimes that pendulum is swinging, and I'm like, okay, let's find that. So what can we tell the people out there that are perhaps they're in the trauma? And I know trauma is such a trigger word right now, but there's just a lot of trauma in the world. They're carrying that. They get some healing and they're like, how do I hold space for both without that, toxic positivity and without the I'm in deep woundedness? How can they find that middleness with your inner wisdom? I love the compass, the North Star, and finding I just keep seeing the centeredness in it. How can they find that?
the first place is to understand wherever you are, again, is an inner message of your present state, your future.
Mm,
So if you are in trauma, what does it mean? It means that you having trouble digesting something that is too big. And it's too
mm,
big because it's not aligned with your values. So, for example, if somebody is physically abused,
mm,
their values are, you know, you want love. So it creates trauma because because of the contrast, the discrepancy, the magnitude between what relationship should be and what this violence is coming. So the trauma is your system inability to digest. That's why the symptoms of trauma are rehashing, replaying, flashback. Your mind is literally trying to digest what
mm.
happened. It's a digestive process. So it's almost like, think of digestion. Either your digestion needs a boost or the food that you ate was toxic. You have to flush it out fast.
Right.
So whenever you have trauma, you have to understand that this was too big because of who you are and the impact of these things.
Mm,
It's almost like it's both, and you want to acknowledge both, It's
mm.
almost like people are in car accident, two friends in the same car accident, one has PTSD, one doesn't.
Right.
One will have
Mm,
PTSD because their life was all about having control. This level of out of control is too much. Body could not process,
right.
mind picked up, and now reaction replay. While the other one lived life so unpredictably, super flexible that this thing, they're like, oh, I just got to stretch next.
Right.
So And the accident was very violent for both. So it all depends on your ability to digest and how you live your life and your values and everything. So
Mm.
trauma is a relationship issue, always.
Mm.
So the first place is to understand, okay, so what is happening was it was big for me to digest.
Mm.
How can I make it easier for me to digest? So either we make it pass through fast. So if you receive a lot of aggression, that aggression needs to leave your body. So you
Mm.
need emotional release. You need some physical energy healing. Like, the body keeps the score. It's stored in the
Right.
body. It has to be released. So you want to enter modalities, whatever you believe in. There's qigong, there's acupuncture, there's yoga. There's many things that can release from the body.
Mm.
Uh, and you want to be able to learn what is the obstacle that is preventing you from digesting, processing. Some people, they want to be nice, so they receive a lot of aggression, so they cannot be angry because they feel it's bad to be angry. So then we have to find their way. Can they journal? Can they write and burn in a paper? Can they do a punching bag? But you have to find the way that is in line with who you are. And so
Right.
that's how we decode the trauma, but it's a first acceptance of where you are right now, a relationship issue, a need to digest and process. And what is holding you back? For some people, it's just they hold on to the judgment that this was so bad or this was unfair, and they cannot go beyond. So
Mm.
it tells us that fairness is something that they really need, and we have to figure out why. Well, that creates safety. Okay, so now the problem is safety, because right now you're achieving safety by being
Mm.
fair. So that
Mm.
trauma totally messed you up because it removed what made you safe.
Mm.
So, in order to digest trauma, this particular trauma, we need to find another way for you to be safe other than fairness.
Mm. So if they don't do this, they're going to probably create a cycle of more trauma. Let's just plug in betrayal. Say betrayal is their trauma. If they don't identify and change their relationship to it, they might call it in over and over again. And what would that be saying? What would that discussion, that inner wisdom discussion look like?
So, if they don't do this, they're going to be stuck with negative emotion, negative feeling, and potentially physical symptom. Like the
Mm.
body and the mind are keep calling your attention through the negative.
Yeah.
So you're
So
going
the
to have an
body's going to start showing up and saying, alert, alert, alert. We're going to start shutting down because we're not a storage unit for this.
So, there's some people who process through the body, some through the mind, some
Mm.
through emotion, some through everything. So, some people, it might never go to the body, although it's in the body, but they're disconnected from the body. So, everybody will have
Mm.
their way, but the negative will slip in your own way. Some
Mm.
negative thoughts, negative emotion, some physical ailments, you name it. So, it's going to start calling your attention so that you start fixing it. You start fixing it.
Mm.
Now, what is replaying internally, there will be thought, there will be all this. It's gonna get triggered in situation, and this is how people might re-trigger trauma or re-get themselves in situation. So
Mm.
for example, if I've been hurt, I've been abused, and I think people have a tendency to have one up. So therefore, the moment I enter a relationship and I see that, I'm going to be triggered. And so
Mm.
somebody else will see that and walk
Mm.
away. It will not be affected. So now I have almost like a second trauma, like because that's how trauma repeats itself.
Mm.
Um, so that's the idea. Um, so basically, everything is going to keep knocking at your door until you stop and understand what is
Mm.
happening and what's being asked of me through my body, through my mind. Like it's almost like your body and your mind are your faithful servants. They are like faithful servants to you. They
Mm.
are constantly going to call your attention. No matter how much you beat up on them, no matter how much you tell yourself the mind is the enemy, it will keep knocking at your door so that you open and you look and you understand. The worst thing you can do is just be one with your feelings, with your emotion. You want to let yourself feel, but you also want to, at the same time, understand where is your mind going, what you're doing.
Don't be consumed by it.
Don't be consumed by.
Acknowledge, but don't set up house there. We're not building a house around that emotion. Yeah.
That's
Love
right.
that. Wow. I know it's, oh, I can't even, do you know we've been talking for an hour and a half? It
Oh
feels,
my God.
I know it's almost midnight there in Paris, and
Oh, I
I feel
didn't
like,
realize.
I feel like it's been 15 minutes. It's like I'm blinking and I'm
Wonderful.
looking at, I know it's so insightful, so valuable. I adore your energy. I love the rhythm of your thinking, how you show up. Everyone needs to know you. How can they find you? Where,
Well,
yeah. What's the best way to communicate with you?
I mean, anywhere. But I mean, the place where to find the wisdom is on my Instagram account, Dr. Yasmine Saad. And Yasmine is with the E at the end because it's the French spelling.
Yes.
Um, but I mean, if they just Google me, they'll find my website. I have a group practice. I train psychologists nationally. So if they want one-on-one help, I have great people for them. There's also
Mhm.
my personal website, dryasminsad.com. If people want me to talk to their company, I do that. I think if you
Yeah.
Google me, you will find me.
I was going to
Basically.
say, if they Google you, they're going to find you on NBC, CBS. They're going to find you like, in fact, the bio was so impressive and so long. I thought, do I say she's an educator and what do I focus on? Because it's also not only impressive, but so, what
I
is
mean,
the word I'm looking, where did you say?
I can tell you who I am that will summarize it all if you want.
So you mean the wise psychologist? The wise
Oh, the wise
psychologist.
side. Oh, that's great. No,
I, l-
I feel like, yes, you like that. Go
I
ahead.
know. I actually stopped because it was so vast. I couldn't encapsulate a word that encompassed who and how you show up in the world. But I loved it so much. And I'm just so honored that you're here and that you shared so much wisdom. And I think it's going to impact so many lives. And yeah, and I know that it was late in Paris and you honored us all with your presence, with your knowledge, with your process, the inner message approach. I think it's profoundly impactful. And I like simple. Simplicity is key in just about anything for me, especially. And I think that my audience, the energetic draw to me will be, I know they will love you because whom I draw in like to keep it simple too. They aren't going to find a complicated way. And the fact that you simplified it is brilliant. Um, One last question.
And before you go
Okay.
there, I'll tell you a little bit.
Yeah.
If you want to summarize my bio, you summarize
Oh,
to the
yes.
essence
Yeah.
of who
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah, yeah, let's hear it from you. I mean, there's no better source than you describing it versus me just being like big. I wanted to say it's a lot. It's big. She's the real
I,
McCoy.
I summarize in 2 words because I feel the essence can be. It's I'm a healer and I'm a teacher, and I think
Mm,
what you felt through this interview is that where I heal
yeah,
and educate at the same time. So I make very complex things simple, more or less. For some, it would be,
yeah,
but and in that process, there's a lot of aha moment and healing that happens.
yeah,
So that's what
absolutely.
I am, and I do that everywhere. So that's the essence that I carry everywhere.
I would say that energy came through loud and clear. It was, yeah, it just was on target. Like everything you said went back to the yin and the yang, kind of like your name. Everything. It was like, was that intentional? I'm not certain. So I love that you described yourself that way. I mean, I wrote down the wise psychologist because you've been honored and it's been out there and I think that I put it in a box. Whenever it goes in a box, it means it's like lit up for me and there's things that I want to focus on. I have 4 pages. I didn't, we talked about it prior that I probably wouldn't look down. I looked down to see if I missed anything. I don't know if I did. I don't think I did because I think we were guided into the conversation that needed to happen and I think to be of service and not to be so structured, but to be guided with your energy and essence was beautiful. I loved it. So my last question for you would be, what feels like love in your life right now? What feels like love?
Oh, I love that question. When love is when I'm lighted up for me. It's when I live by my value. And I didn't know for a long time what my value was. So I
Mm.
started identifying. For me, love is when I'm fully alive. Because when I'm fully alive, I feel like I'm full of life force. I'm shining through. So I realized for me, love is talking about anything that expands the
Mm.
self, the development. That's why you see me here. I We can spend an hour and a half, 2 hours. It will feel like a minute because
Yeah.
like I love the inner growth. I love that. So I love everything that, you know, changes you, elevate you. So I love travel. I love discovering places. I love being in touch with nature, the beauty of things. That's why, I mean, I love my inner message approach because it's connecting
Yeah.
to the love within, how everything is bringing you love and you don't even realize it through the negative, through the positive. So for me, love is this connection to this energy that's constantly present that is fueling your life.
Mm.
And whenever I'm in it and connected to it, I feel great. And whenever I'm not connected to it, I start realizing, well, what is it that makes me move away from it? So, maybe responsibility and duty. When I get in that role, then I'm no longer in touch with the love. That means, yeah, I went into, I should,
Mm.
so now let's recenter. So
Mm.
that's what love is for me, is living through this loving energy. And I know it, and it's a feeling, and when I'm in it. And now from that feeling, I was able to decode what it is for me. And it's always related to expansion of the self.
Wow. So connected, so soulful. I am so glad to have you in my world. I mean, I'm just gonna like put you in my pocket and pull it out and say, what is that inner method, that simple method? Yeah, I love that. I
Feel free
love,
to call
yeah.
me. I
I
love
love you.
that.
It's okay. I'm gonna be like, I've forgotten I'm in my complicated, complex trauma right now. What is that simple method and what is it attached to, Dana? I love it. I love you. I was so blessed to have you. Dr. Yasmine Saad, you are a blessing. I'm so, so honored to have you here. And I hope you sleep well tonight,
Thank
and
you. And thank you so much for having me. And you're a light in the world. I can feel you living your purpose, your energy. And thank you so much for having me.
such a great conversation. I can't wait to share it. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And you're going to want to play this episode on repeat. All right. Bye for now.